Welcome back to another edition of The House That Ellen Built. This is season 3. I'm Scott Martin. With me, as always,
Greg Balmer.
And in this episode, we are going to go over many things, including where we've been. We missed the off season, and we had a rough couple of weeks to start the season personally, but we are doing well now. We are back. We get into a preview for week 3. We get into our predictions, and we talk with Marv Levy himself. So stay tuned throughout the episode because you will be honored with an interview with Marv Levy.
It's been quite a journey. We've seen it all.
The streak is over.
From AFL to AFC.
The Bills are in the Super Bowl.
From Jack to Jim to Josh and so many more.
Jumped over a man at the 45.
Our Bills give everything they have. And they receive even more.
And here we go.
This isn't just a team, it's a community. Banded together, we push and we persevere.
It is pandemonium. It is fantastic.
We've carried each other through good times and tough breaks.
I know I've never felt more loved right now.
At the end of every hit, we rise and fight again.
They're after him and safe it.
That tenacity,
He was in his face and Hughes dropped him.
sacrifice, strain, passion is ingrained in Buffalo and in its people.
Let's go, guys. We're going to knock their ass off.
Fires it deep. Makes the catch. Fumbles in the middle. It's a run by Thurman.
Where else would you rather be than right here, right now?
Greg, welcome back. It's like we never left, even though we're both in different spots. I'm in a bigger house up the road from where I lived before, and you're in a different state.
I'm still holding it down in Madison, Wisconsin. We've been in a bit of podcast hibernation, if you will. We've missed a few things. We've missed a few episodes, but we're going to make up for lost time and get back on track. Am I right?
You are right. It's long overdue. Let's see. We missed the draft. We missed training camp. We missed week 1 and 2. But I will say we have some valid excuses. I now have a 3.5-month-old son, and you unfortunately lost your mother unexpectedly, and I lost my voice. So we were going to do one. You were going to power through anyway for week 1. I could hardly even get words out my mouth. By week 2, I sounded better, but I sound like I was a chain smoker. And now I'm back to normal. Hopefully you're doing okay, and the family's healing. And
As you lost your father when you were just out of high school. You hear people that talk about loss, and it doesn't hit you, I think, quite the same way until you've experienced it yourself. Because you can hear someone say their loss and you can try to put yourself in their shoes. People describe how it feels, but you don't know what it feels like until it happens. And it truly does. Losing a parent definitely changes your outlook on things. It changes your outlook on life. It kind of just changes the way you look at things, and in good and bad. I think the bad is obviously the heartbreak and the anger and the questions and the stages of grief that you go through, the disbelief of getting through a work day, and you'll see something or hear a song or hear something on the radio, and it reminds you of the person you lost, and you want to call them and you can't anymore. And I think that definite reality that sets in is sobering. Yeah, all you have are voicemails, all you have are videos and pictures. So it's been a whirlwind for me personally. It's been the hardest month of my life, and I'm sure I can speak for my family too. It's just been one thing after another of just being emotionally drained, truly losing the cornerstone of our family. I love my mom. She's still here with us in spirit. I know that. And I know that she wasn't afraid of death for good reason, because she knew where she was going. So she lived a good life to 77 years old. She passed away on the 22nd of August. And the 2nd of September was going to be my father and hers 57th wedding anniversary. They were together for over a half a century, and she was an amazing wife, and she was an amazing mom to myself and my brother and sister, and a friend to countless people that could fill up an arena. So I am a lucky man in that I have a lot of really good friends and I have amazing family, and it sucks that I don't have a mom anymore, but I am truly blessed though with the people that have surrounded myself with in my life. And yeah, it's good to be back. It's good to see your face again and talk Bills football again with you. Even though we've been doing it off air, we've still been talking about Bills football off air, via text or a phone call here or there. And obviously we've been following these first 2 weeks of Bills football, but just haven't gotten to do the podcast for the reasons before mentioned that you stated. But take every moment you can and live in it. Every single day you wake up, be blessed that you woke up. Be blessed for that day, because that's the only thing guaranteed. And hope that you get another one after that. So I'll get off my soapbox. I appreciate you letting me say something.
No worries at all. Your mom deserves the time and the respect. And I do know what it's like to lose a parent and wanting to call them, especially when you hit milestones in your life, because they're proud of you. They're with you in spirit. My father passed unexpectedly when I was in college. I was a freshman and I got a call in the dorms. This was literally months before I actually got my first cell phone in 2001. I was called collect by my brother. And anyway, long story short, I won't make this about me, but it was unexpected. He was 45 years old. It's a reality check. It's a lot of things. But one thing that brings everyone together and is a good healing distraction is sports. Talking about football, the Buffalo Bills actually helped me a lot. And I think one of the biggest reasons why I'm such a Bills fan, every Sunday or whatever time they play, in this case, Monday, I carry my dad with me. He took me to tailgates when I was a kid. We had Bills season tickets, 50-yard line, second section up since their inaugural season with my grandparents. And I just never forgot keeping the Game Day magazine with the lineup for the game and just watching the Jets fly over when we play the Jets and just seeing all the red, white, and blue stuff. It's patriotic. To me, there's nothing more American than the Buffalo Bills in the National Football League. It's been a true honor meeting you through the Bills. Really, you're from South Dakota. I'm from Buffalo. You had no ties there other than picking a team when you were a kid that went to 4 straight Super Bowls, and you just never lost that passion. And you have blood running through you from Buffalo. So I appreciate you, man.
I appreciate you too. Your dad and mom did a great job raising you into an amazing human. And you've become a brother to me. You're like family, even though we are not blood related. You've done so many things for me, and I hope I've reciprocated half of it. And I know that, my mom was super happy that we did the podcast together. And I didn't want to cry here.
Hopefully you're crying for good reason later on this year, and in your mom's honor, we can win it all.
She was a Bills fan too. Anybody that knows Deanna, she was a cheerleader for her kids, and part of that was because me and my brother and my sister, we were into our various sports, and my sister's kids are into their sports, and me and Darren being a Bills and a Vikings fan, she cheered for the Bills because I cheered for the Bills. She cheered for the Vikings because Darren cheered for the Vikings. So she loved Josh Allen. We had a Christmas where the inside joke, one Christmas down in Houston together, I had given several Josh Allen cards out to my family members for Christmas that particular year. I forgot what year it was, 2020 or 2021. And so then the whole week down in Houston, Texas, the whole family, including my mom, we just randomly say throughout the house during the day, Josh Allen. And that was like the inside joke during that family Christmas. But she loved Josh Allen. She loved the Buffalo Bills, and she loved whatever her kids loved, as a mother does. I appreciate you giving me the time just to honor my mom. And if there's one thing we do on this podcast, it's to have fun and try to be as real as we can with each other, and not just put on a show talking about sports, because there's, we try not to be robotic, which I think is cool. Even since we started in your studio in Portland, when we did it in person, like we tried to have fun with it, not always just be
serious.
Straight edge. I enjoy the humor and sometimes going off the cuff.
We will have a more positive note for later in this episode when 99-year-old legendary head coach of the Buffalo Bills, Marv Levy, gets interviewed by yours truly. It would have been with Greg, but Greg had things going on, including the loss of his mother. So, Greg, I appreciate you just saying, you know what, Scott, you do you.
Yeah, I already had way too much stress going on in my life, and I knew that it was, I think, yeah, my heart told me to just let you roll with this. You got it going, and you made the connection and did the behind the scenes work to make this happen, to talk with Marv and his wonderful wife. And I knew that he was going to be in good hands with you taking it on solo. And even though you asked him a question, I asked you to ask for me, which was awesome. And quite frankly, when you sent me the rough edit, that before you were going to do the editing for the wonderful viewers to see on this podcast, that was something I needed and my family needed. I was listening to it on the front porch in Rapid City, sitting with a cup of coffee, and I kind of got away from everybody in the house and just went and put my headphones on, and I listened to the 10, 12 minutes of you talking with him, and it put a huge smile on my face, listening to you ask him questions, listening to him respond with his humor and his wit. And then I played it on the speaker in the Suburban when we were driving out to the hills one day to go fishing. And so then my brother and sister-in-law got to listen to it. So we all listened to it together, the rough cut of it, and we loved it. It was a moment where we needed something like that to put a smile on our face. And they obviously know how much Marv means to me, how much he means to you, how much he means to Bills fans and the history of this franchise. So I appreciate you, man.
If there's anybody that has quoted Marv Levy on this show, it's you. If I've done it, it's to repeat what you've said. I could go back, and I actually was going to do this for him, but I never had time. And I was going to do a montage of every time you reference a handful of his quotes. That's why I will have him on again, no doubt. It went very well. And I talked to his wife, Fran, for an hour before we did this. And I talked to him off the air before that and then a little bit afterwards. And they said they would gladly do it again. Well, after they see this go live, they'll probably want to do it again in early October. And I think it would be an honor to have viewers ask questions and get you to ask questions, and for both of us to be able to interview him next time.
Speaking about how short life is, and just in my own circumstances with my mom, how you take things for granted until they're not there, and that's kind of a hard lesson learned in life. And that's the thing with Marv, is that you can't take this man for granted, because he's getting up there. And but you got to cherish this. It's special to have been able to talk with him. And what if that didn't happen, right? You put it off, or things happen and we're busy. And so it's just such a cool thing to catch him at the later twilight of his life. And as he's probably reflecting on his life and his career, and he's living his remaining days with his family as he should, and just trying to soak up everything he can. So it's special. A motto that I've used before, and now it's more relevant even now, pertaining to my personal situation that I find myself in. Life is what happens when you're busy making other plans. That's something to ponder. You get caught up in life, or you get caught up in your plans, or your schedule and what you think should happen, or what you think is going to happen. And then life actually happens. And that's the unpredictable part. Life is unpredictable.
And so will be the season. It will be unpredictable without Stephon Diggs, without Gabe Davis, without Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer, without a number of former key players and contributors to the Buffalo Bills. So going into week 3 against Jacksonville, who the Bills seem to have trouble with. We've had some, as Ed Oliver called it, weird games against them. They've really had our number, whether that be a 9-6 loss or a 25-20 or 23-20. It's
9-6.
I think the Bills are in a different place. I think Trevor Lawrence has his ups and his downs, but he's in no way, shape, or form anything like Josh Allen at this point in his career. And I just feel like the Bills have the edge. Of course, we've thought that every other time we've played them, but sometimes it's about matchups. Look at the Dolphins. High-powered, #1 offense for passing last year, speed everywhere. And the Bills, with many backups now in starting roles, including University of Buffalo products, Jamarcus Ingram in there lighting it up with 2 picks, including a pick 6. And then you've got Cam Lewis stepping up. Even though he's in year 5, it's more about the familiarity and execution, and they're both doing it really well. We didn't talk about the draft, but we had a heck of a draft the last few years. They're finally getting in the lineup and doing something, some of them sooner than later. And we've got Balen Spector, a former 5th round pick out of Clemson, or 7th round. And his issues were his health in the past, but he has stepped up. And Dorian Williams, who I always liked having in there after Tremaine Edmonds was gone. Sean McDermott basically can do no wrong. And he's passed the torch over to Bobby Babish to make the play calls on defense, which is swimmingly. On offense, having Joe Brady in his first full season with an offense that he will have a run rather than something from somebody else's offense. And I just think that starting 2-0 was a great way to do it because it's going to get tough. There's going to be tough sledding for the next 5-6 weeks. Week 3, Monday Night Football, prime time. There's actually 2 games. Bills are scheduled with the first one. It's Jacksonville at home.
Yep. Chris Brown has really been emphasizing what you just kind of talked about, player development. Chris Brown and Steve Tasker were talking a lot about that this last week on One Bills Drive, and just hitting home the point that, yes, as Bills fans, there are some things that we hold as scars, i.e. 13 seconds, the wide right field goal last year in the divisional round, the fact that we can't get past the Chiefs or the Bengals to get back to that championship game of the AFC that we so badly desire after getting our butts handed to us when we got there against the Chiefs. So the fact is, though, despite the faults, and every team has faults, and that's another thing that Chris Brown always talks about, is don't just pay attention to your team or your fantasy players on your team. Look at the whole NFL. We're all complaining about our injuries that the Bills have. Look at the rest of the NFL. Look at the 49ers right now. Look at the Vikings losing their stud rookie quarterback before he even could see an actual down in the regular season. He's out with a knee. So it's not just a us problem. It's an entire league problem. Everyone deals with stuff. If there's one thing that people should be envious about for the Bills, it's our player development, because it is an A+ right now compared to what we had during the drought years, where it was just constant turnover, head coach gone, GM gone, bring in a new regime, that one out, bring in a new regime. It was just rinse and repeat, and it was a lot of misery for us Bills fans. Well, fast forward and you find ourselves in 2017 and on, really, since McDermott and Bean have gotten here, particularly after, Allen's rookie season, where he had to kind of get some things worked out. And we've been a model of consistency for how an NFL organization should run player development wise. Like you were talking about, the Balin Spectors, the Jamarcus Ingrams, the Christian Benfords, the list goes on for players that Bean has found as late round gems. We haven't, the jury's still out on our, we got to pump the brakes on the wide receiver train, because that whole wide receiver train hype that we talked about and the, Bills radio talked about for months and months leading into this past draft, we got to pump it, because Keon Coleman, we don't know yet. The jury is still out. I think he's clearly young. We're only 2 weeks into the season, but it's really been these late round picks that Bean has hit on. And then McDermott in tune, and their relationship has really developed. It's patience, right? And patience has been lost in the NFL these days, I feel like, with quarterbacks, with all sorts of positions, running backs too. People give up so easily. And I just feel like whatever's working behind closed doors at One Bills Drive right now with this regime, if there's one thing that is clicking, we may not always make the right calls with 13 seconds, but we are developing players the right way.
And Brandon Beane has done a great job. I think, look at what Marv Levy had with Bill Polian. He built a team that lasted. Even after Bill Polian was gone, they had another Super Bowl under their belt, and they were just good for the next 3, 4, 5 years, really, until about 99, 2000. I know Kelly retired in 96, but it was like, you don't build for a year or two. You build for the long run, and they play the long game. They are patient. Even Kaiir Elam. They've kept him around. They didn't trade him away for dirt cheap. He was a first rounder where Christian Benford wasn't. If you flip flop where they're at, would you feel better about the draft? For me, it makes no difference. He's been able to get undrafted free agents. Like, look at Frank Gore Jr., that people are like, oh, he's not going to be anything like his father. Look at how hard he ran in the preseason. If we have an injury, hopefully we don't, at the running back position, he'll be right there to step in. And we've already got Ray Davis, who I think is a great 1-2 punch with James Cook, who's obviously more tall and thin and shifty. Some of his stats, if we look at it, he's earned his second career AFC Offensive Player of the Week honors last week because he had 3 touchdowns. Since the start of 2023, Cook is ranked 3rd among all running backs with yards from scrimmage. And guess who's in front of him? Christian McCaffrey, Breece Hall. We're talking 2,000 yards and 1,800 yards, and he had 1,765. His success was also aided by that offensive line that's been all 5 starters all season last year. And then this year, the first 2 games, they've also remained healthy. Kirk has 4.99 yards per carry, which is the best in team history for the Bills. So James Cook, 4.99, CJ Spiller, 4.97. Now, here's the crazy part. From 2020 season, so 20, 21, 22, 23, and including the beginning of this year, the Bills are 800, meaning 80% winning percentage at home. This would be their 8th consecutive regular season game winning streak. So they have 7 going into this, which is still currently the longest active winning streak. The Steelers have the next longest streak with 5. And since McDermott had arrived in 2017, the Bills defense has only allowed 135 passing plays of 25 plus yards. Patriots ranked second with 178, and that was mostly under Bill Belichick. Through 2 games, the Bills offensive line is tied for the league lead in sacks allowed, only 2 in 2 games. He wasn't even sacked last week. And dating back to the start of last year, the Bills lead the NFL, having only allowed 26 sacks. Now, we know Allen is built differently. He's usually shifty, and he gets out of sacks. But still, Allen's passer rating has gone through the roof. The first 2 games, he's over 124. His quarterback rating dating back to 123.7.
Yeah.
So they're just executing at a high level.
Yeah.
McDermott, much like Marv, is a disciplinarian. Maybe dry at times. Maybe he does have that sense of humor in press conferences, and he does embrace the media, but he's there for business. And it's good that he can take on that head coaching role and not have to wear all these hats elsewhere. And he can focus on the big picture and let them do their jobs. And obviously, he still has his fingers all over that defense. He's probably one of the best in the last 20 years at coaching up defensive backs. That's a position he played. I can't say enough good about McDermott and what he's done for Buffalo. I know there's head scratchers sometimes. He does some weird things and has weird calls.
And all the coaches do for the most part. I mean,
absolutely.
I think Andy Reid might be the most perfect coach that doesn't get a lot of criticism, but you look around the league at these other teams on a weekly basis on Sundays and Mondays and Thursdays, and there's a lot of weird, kind of stupid stuff going on with those other coaches too. So you're right. We gotta take the good that we have and be blessed with that. And understand that we're not the only ones that have frustrations. Every team, every fan base, every organization has them. Some build differently than others. Imagine being a Carolina Panthers fan right now.
I can't even imagine. I mean, think about what we had when Allen was drafted. We had Nathan Peterman start a game.
Yeah.
And more than one game, but he had that game. Holy cow. That we'll never forget. Think about what
against the Ravens, right? That was the Ravens.
Yes, 5 interceptions, and it was just, come on. The Bills were able to make the playoffs with Tyrod Taylor in 2017. And again, they lost to the Jaguars in the first round with Blake Bortles in 2019. I believe they've seen each other 4 or 5 times under McDermott. The Jags have just had our number for the most part. And it's just one of those things that happens. I mean, the Bills, if they start 3-0, they will have done that 3 times under McDermott, 2019, 2020, and then 2024.
Yeah.
And that would be amazing. And think about what the Bills were before McDermott. Now, this is his 8th year. So 6 out of his 7 years coaching so far with the Bills, he's taken the Bills to the playoffs. And literally the only year they didn't go was Allen's rookie year.
You talk about weird, and Ed Oliver talked about the word weird, and it has been pretty weird. Keep Buffalo weird on Monday night by losing your voices, Bills Mafia. I hope you all call in on Tuesday because you don't have a voice left, so we can make it hard on Trevor Lawrence and the boys. Not to oversimplify it, that you've got 2 teams that are heading in general different directions going into Monday night. I think you've got the Jacksonville Jaguars that don't have an identity anymore, if they ever did. They're 1-7 going into this game, which can scare you because they're due for a win, some might think. But they don't seem to have an identity. They've got all this talent, clearly, on offense and defense. You've got Trevor Lawrence, who will show flashes of being a top 10 quarterback, but not enough to legitimately be in that conversation. He's had big time issues with wide receiver drops, and specifically dating back to last year. Red zone opportunities have been abysmal for the Jacksonville Jaguars. So many missed opportunities, whether it's just slightly overthrown out of the back of the end zone or drop passes, blatantly drop passes. And that's why it takes all 11 players on each side, right? That's why it's one of the biggest team games. But then on the other side, you got the Bills. And you have this team that got bashed by many media sources this offseason about all the leadership they're losing. Stephon Diggs, the stud wide receiver, their second receiver in Gabe Davis. They're losing Poyer and Hyde and Trey White. What are they going to do with the leadership in the room? Well, 2 weeks in, we've gotten to see two different sides of what is, I think, such a cohesive group that has become this 2023-2024 Bills squad. You got to see in week 1 how the Bills were able to come back and kind of Allen doing his typical put the team on his back, put the Superman cape on. And then you got to go to week 2 where you get to see a completely different way of winning, where you control the ground game and you control the clock and you get those opportune turnovers and that complementary football like McDermott always talks about, that we laugh about, right? The cliche. But that's what puts the league on notice. We just showed 2 different ways we can win, but each game, the cohesiveness, the brotherhood on that sideline, the whole team celebrating with each other and being so into it for their fellow teammate. And that's special, because you don't see that on every NFL team on Sundays and Mondays and Thursdays. So I do think we've got 2 teams going in opposite directions, but then that you go back to that weird, and it is weird. And I think that's why there's a little pit in my stomach going into Monday night, even though I feel confident that we can beat this team by double digits. I do. But then you look back at this recent history between this team, and it does give you just this cause to hesitate.
Like I said, the history with the matchups have been pretty tough. Like in 2021, the Bills started 5-2, and they traveled down to Duval County, and they lost one of the strangest games in the Josh Allen era, 9-6. And that loss kicked off a 2-4 stretch for the Bills, which sucks. Because if they lose here, I don't want them to go into one of those. I mean, last season, the Bills were riding high at 3-1, and then they had to go to London and play the Jags, and they lost 25-20. And the Bills lost Matt Milano for the first time. And then that stretch led them to a 3-5.
And I believe
going into the bye.
I believe we were out without Greg Rousseau too in that game last year.
Yes, I believe so. Obviously injuries will play a role with every team. There's a 100% injury rate in the NFL. What can you do for the long run? We may get Matt Milano back before the end of the season. Will he be ready for the playoffs? I hope so. I'd rather lose him at the beginning and have him when it matters most than lose him in week 7 or 8.
Yep. Bills Mafia already had to go through the heart-wrenching experience of seeing Trey White crumble at the hands of injury, and the way he worked his way back after tearing his knee up, worked his way back. Such hard work that goes behind the scenes that us fans, you can hear the reports and the interviews, but the work behind the scenes by the staff and that individual player to get healthy again and want it, and he wanted it so bad, and to see Trey White get injured again. And now it's kind of the same story with Milano. He works his ass off to get back, and he's back for training camp, and we're starting to see his helmet on, and we're seeing reports that he's starting to participate in drills. And then he tears a muscle tackling a dummy in training camp practice. I mean, all that work behind the scenes, and you can imagine how devastated that man is, just let alone us fans, of what it means for losing him as a key playmaker on our defense. But man, like, he went through all that work behind the scenes to get back, because he wanted it, because he's a professional, because he loves the game. And boom, just like that, you tackle a dummy in practice and you're out for potentially the whole regular season. But McDermott and the guys have just found it's like McDermott and the coaching staff, they keep on getting punches, just punch, left hook, right hook. And they just keep on countering it with stuff. And then I think, again, that goes back to their player development and the patience and the coaching.
Trust the process. And losing Terrell Bernard, losing Taron Johnson, losing Matt Milano. If there were 3 guys that they couldn't afford to lose on defense, it's literally those 3. Von Miller, we've already lost before. He looks like his pre-30-year-old self.
Give him a clap, man. Let's give Von a clap. He deserves a clap. Yeah.
It's just one of those things that you'll love to see, that he can fight back and get motivated by all the hate and the doubt, just like Josh Allen being the most overrated player in the league. And he was interviewed about it. They were trying to get a reaction out of him. He said, good. There's 31 other teams in the league that have other quarterbacks and other players that their fan bases root for. If I'm hated for what I do on the field, I love it. And that's fine. He doesn't need the extra motivation. I think sending out 1,000 letters in college and getting rejected and getting no offers was motivation. He's always been counted out. Let the
Yeah.
doubters continue. I know he's lost in the playoffs and he's lost to go, the whole 13-second game wasn't even his fault. He led a perfect playoff series only to lose, but he had nothing to do with that. With Leslie Frazier gone and Bobby Babish in there, who's learned from his father, and McDermott, who's been there for several years now. I feel like they may be better this year than they were last year with the aging veterans who used to be the anchor of the franchise. Now you have all these young guys that are in lead roles. If you think about the whole captains, right? Who are the captains this year? They don't have 11 like some teams or 7. They have Josh Allen
and Bernard.
And they don't even have like where Tyler Bass is, which we won't get into Tyler Bass. Hopefully he becomes Tyler Bass and not more Tyler Ass. But
he's only missed one bad field goal because of the attention on him since missing that wide right field goal in the divisional round against the Chiefs. It's just kind of low-hanging fruit to wonder, because field goal kicking is obviously a very heavy psychological position.
I know that his confidence is down, or confidence in him is down. What he's got going on between the ears, I don't personally know. I think a lot of it has to do with that, though, because he's got all the talent and leg power. We've seen him, power through 50, 60-yard field goals before, and he does it in practice. And they said, he made a 70-yarder.
And that's just it. I think that's where sports psychologists come into play. And I know that sports psychologists are involved with NFL teams as they are involved with other professional organizations of various sports. It's obviously at the player's discretion if you can't force them to talk with a sports psychologist. But I feel like situations like this are prime for at least experimenting with that or trying it. I mean, no one needs to know. I mean, he could be seeing a sports psychologist right now behind the scenes, and hopefully that wouldn't be something that gets reported to the media. Like it is, it's a very psychological position. It's much like a golf swing. As you may know, I'm getting into golf now pretty seriously. And field goal kicking is much like a golf swing, and it's so mental. You got to be mental to try to hit a tire iron and a small little ball 300 yards into a teeny hole, right? It's like if you're not totally focused with your head down on that golf ball, if you lift your head up just for a split second at any moment from that backswing to follow through to make good contact with that ball, it's going to slice or it's going to pull or whatever. Same thing with field goal kicking. Like you have to be so focused and your mechanics have to be so on, and it's just this well-oiled machine that has to all come together in this split second as a ball is getting snapped and you've got grown men coming at you to try to block this kick. I think there's clearly something going on mentally with them. He's still Tyler Bass. He's still drilled some really good kicks so far in this young season. But yes, the reason that they brought in these other kickers is to kind of light a fire under him. Obviously, that's a psychological thing. And I think that, they're probably, the coaching staff is starting to get nervous about, well, what if we get back to the divisional round this year? And this happens again where we're in another close game, or we're in the wild card game and it's another close game, and we got to get to that second round or third round. I don't envy his position. It's a tough position to be in. Bass has obviously got a lot of pride. He's a grown man. He's an NFL kicker. He's made some good money in this league. He wants to figure out what's going on. And I think he will. It's a tough predicament to be in, and I wish we didn't even have to talk about it.
Tyler Bass is a talented kicker, and I feel like his redemption story would be kicking the one that we need in the playoffs to go to the Super Bowl. How would you like to reverse the curse from Scott Norwood with the first Super Bowl? They were never able to get closer in the next 3 Super Bowls after that first loss. And I talked to Marv Levy about the losses and what you do to kind of focus. And he has a quote from a book that his mother gave him that he used in the locker room, that they used whenever they felt down or had a loss that they wanted to pick up from. And he goes over that a little bit. I think it's very cool. The Bills could use something like that this season just to kind of reverse all this crap, because obviously Mahomes and the Chiefs have been their kryptonite. The Jags stand in their way this week. And they, in the past, have proven to get into a skid after losing to the Jags. So if they can beat the 0-2 Jags to make them go 0-3, the Jags' chance of the playoffs are very slim, whereas the Bills starting 3-0 makes it much stronger, especially since this is an AFC opponent. Now, the Bills are 5.5 point favorites for this game. They obviously are at home and they've got a very good home record. Like I said, they're on a 7-game win streak. And it's not even that like Trevor Lawrence is doing poorly. He's just only thrown 1 touchdown. So no interceptions, averaging under 200 yards a game, but technically so is Allen after not having to do much last week. But Allen also hasn't thrown a pick. They both have had pretty similar modest numbers, just under 400 yards for 2 games. Travis Etienne, who's a good running back, has less than 100 yards on the year. He's averaging 3.8 yards per carry with 25 rushes. James Cook, 30 rushes, 5 yards a carry. A clean 5 yards per carry. They both have 2 rushing touchdowns. So the running games are pretty similar. Now receiving, we're going to have Brian Thomas Jr. to go against, which he was a 23rd overall pick. Some of us were hoping the Bills would take him. He obviously got picked first or ahead of the Bills pick at 28. So then the Bills traded away that pick to the Chiefs, and Chiefs got Xavier Worthy. A lot of people were up in arms over that because in 2017, the Bills gave the Chiefs the pick that got them Patrick Mahomes. And then the next year that afforded the Bills the ability to get Josh Allen and Tremaine Edmonds in the first round. So I know with Mahomes, you get the Super Bowl victories, but I think if Allen were on the Chiefs, it would have been the same. We'd be saying the same with Mahomes. Oh man, we could have gotten Allen the next year, that kind of thing. Anyway, I'll get back to what I was thinking. Brian Thomas is a good wide receiver, and he's got 23.5 yards per game. Nothing crazy. He's got 1 touchdown, only 6 receptions. And then we've got Keon Coleman, who the media had loved throughout the offseason. He's got a vibrant personality. He had a great first game with a nice contested catch along the sideline near the end zone. And then he went dead silent pulling a Gabe Davis last week. He's a rookie. You're going to have highs. You're going to have lows. Look at what Marvin Harrison Jr. did against the Bills week 1. 0. Now, was he wide open on a pass and Murray didn't see him or find him? Yes, but he blew up last week, just like Malik Nabers. Some of these guys are going to go off at different times. I'm expecting the most consistent to be Khalil Shakir. He's like the new Beasley.
He's the Robin to Josh Allen's Batman.
Yeah, and I love the guy. And everyone was talking in the offseason about how Dalton Kincaid's wide receiver 1 or target number 1. Down the stretch, maybe he will be. He's obviously got very good hands. So far through 2 games, the receivers and the backs have shown to be trustworthy with Allen's passing. And he knows now when to use what and when to be a hero, even when he's jumping over people in the end zone still. And he did hurt his non-throwing hand a little bit, but he's been a full go all week this week. He played last week with it. Maybe they were a little more conservative with his approach because they didn't need him much with 3 turnovers from Tua in the first half. Seeing that blowout was super satisfying based on how cocky the Dolphins fans have been all offseason every year. They're basically like another Chiefs fan base.
Yap. And then we just shut him up. Speaking of Dalton Kincaid.
Yes.
So he's got a combined 44 yards 2 weeks into the season, going into this 3rd week here on Monday night. Over or under 50 yards for this game Monday night in Buffalo?
I'll say over.
Yeah, I hope so. My fantasy team, not only my Bills fandom, but my fantasy team hopes so too.
Well, I mean, if you're comparing these 2 teams, Jacksonville's defense is actually pretty similar to the Bills. They're both tied for 8th for points against per game, which allowing 19 points is pretty average. It's upper quarter of the league. Total yards per game, they're allowing 38 more yards than the Bills, so not too bad. Passing defense is where they're really kind of rough. The Jags are 30th, where the Bills are 13th. And that's 13th. The safeties with DeMar Hamlin in there and Taylor Rapp, they're no higher deployer in their prime, but that are doing really well, and people weren't expecting it, and I love to see it. Regarding sacks, Jags have 5, and then Bills have 6. Now, Von Miller has 1.5 sacks, and Groot has, I think, 3 or 4 of those. So
I am really looking forward to keeping a close eye again on our defensive line. If they can wreak some havoc on a somewhat questionable offensive line for the Jaguars, it could be a fun night for Bills Mafia there in Orchard Park.
Our defensive line is going to be crucial on getting to the quarterback. Our defense in general has been great for interceptions. As you know, we got 3 last week, and that's 4th best in the league. The Jags defense just isn't good about getting turnovers. Points per game allowed is, good, but the offenses are actually very different. Points scored per game, Bills 3. And then the Jags are 26. So they're averaging 15 points a game. If we keep them to 15, there is no doubt we win. and we win by more than the 5.5 point spread. I think it's time now, since we don't need to do a more thorough breakdown, why don't we place our bets? Do you think the Bills and Jags will score combined more than 45.5 points?
I do.
I hope so. I hope it's not another 9-6 barn burner.
Yeah.
I do think so as well. I haven't really put a lot of time or thought into the actual score, but I'll do it right now. 28-17. 28-17 is 45. That's like right at the under. So I'll pick the under then.
30-17 Buffalo.
Okay, so you're only going 2 more points above it. You're going above the spread just enough. Okay, so I pick 28-17. Greg picks 30-17, both in favor of the Bills. All right, so we did a preview for week 3 of the Buffalo Bills hosting the Jacksonville Jaguars. And now we're going to play the interview I did with Marv Levy, which was at the end of August, right around the time that Greg lost his mother, so he couldn't be a part of it. Here goes Marv Levy.
Hi, Scott.
Hello. How are you?
Okay, where are you, in Portland?
I am. I'm in Portland, Oregon, and I hear you love it here.
Oh, yeah. I thought it was the most beautiful city. I've been there but long ago, however. Yeah, but I've been to Portland. Way back, I coached at Cal Berkeley, and we were in the Pac-8. I don't know if it still functions that way. Good spot to be.
So I grew up in Western New York. I was born at the hospital there in Buffalo, and lived there until I played at Canisius College for a couple of years. My final year was the year it went defunct when they canceled the program in 2002.
Yeah.
Do you remember who tried to coach there back in the 40s?
No, but I bet if you tell me, I'll remember. But I can't come up with it now. Who was it?
It was Vince Lombardi. He was actually denied the job, and he said that it was one of the biggest disappointments of his life.
Wow, I did not know that. No, by no means. I think I heard of that guy.
Yeah, Vince Lombardi, he said that Canisius gave him the greatest disappointment of his career, and he felt good about his chances, but the college actually hired some lawyer who had coached there prior to the war, so he had never been more disappointed. That was 1948.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
I didn't know I was going to give you a bit of history.
Oh, yeah, that sure is. I knew him a little bit, and good guy. I was an assistant coach somewhere in college and went to one of his practices, and he was tremendously cordial and helpful. And then I knew him as the years passed by better and better.
Well, you're both legends in my eyes and the NFL's. So you coached for 47 years, which is incredible, and you stepped away from the game entirely about 17 years ago. How much do you miss being involved in football?
Well, it was time. It was time to step away because there were other things in life. There were vacations. Fran and I went to Palm Springs for many years. We bought a vacation home in Williamsburg, Virginia. I don't know if you've ever been there. It no longer have either one, but no, it was time. At 47 years, I knew there'd be some of those Sundays when I might miss it and everything, but I knew also what you had to involve in your energy and time and dedication, and there comes a time you get too old to do it.
But you're never too old to watch Bills games, right?
Yeah, that's right. I'm never too old to second guess any of the coaches. Yeah, right now, sure.
So do you follow any of the games now?
Not very closely. The coach at William & Mary, I've gotten to know him a bit. I like him. I like Buffalo. The fans there were terrific. The coach at Buffalo is a William & Mary alum, and that adds to it.
Yeah, Sean McDermott, I feel like you two both had a strong emphasis on special teams, and you both coach, with a lot of energy and a lot of discipline.
That is the most chicken call I've ever seen, Tony. Who threw that flag, you know? He's an idiot, the guy. He keeps doing it all the time. What's the flag for?
Pass to Bruce, 89 through his helmet.
Coming over to the bench.
No, he wasn't. He cannot take his helmet off and throw the helmet anywhere on the field of play. That's not a chicken.
It is a chicken call. Chicken bull call. Get him out of the game. Hey, throw that jerk out. Hey, throw the flag on that jerk. Tried.
I don't know if you know it, but Dick Vermeil and I were the first two special teams coaches in the league. Other teams didn't have special teams coaches. We both thought so much of the kicking game, and George Allen hired Dick. And 1 year later, Dick left to become head coach at UCLA, recommended me to George, and that's what started me in that sense of the word.
You coached with the Rams and the Redskins, right? And then you've gone everywhere from college to CFL to USFL and the NFL.
That's right. And funny thing, while we're talking, our daughter, friend of my daughter, right now is in Montreal. There's a game tonight. They are celebrating the 50th anniversary of our Grey Cup champions. I was coaching there then. Yeah.
Holy cow. Yeah. Well, you're one of only 3 people to be inducted into both the Canadian and Pro Football Hall of Fame.
You are knowledgeable. That's right. Warren Moon and the coach from the Minnesota Vikings.
Bud Grant.
Bud Grant, Warren Moon. That's right. And we've, the 3 of us have commented about that to each other many times, how much we like both. Yeah.
There's one thing about the Hall of Fame ceremony. You went there in 2023, but you missed this year. I was told that there's only one way you would ever go back to that ceremony in person.
I know where you're heading.
What would it take, Coach?
Oh, boy, I tell you, there has never been a special teams player like Steve Tasker. Was that what you were referring to?
Absolutely.
Yeah. There's never been a special teams player like him. He had such high character, you can't believe it. He was a terrific wide receiver also. Kelly kept wanting me to play him more as a wide receiver, but there's too much doing the kicking game. But he was great. He's a radio announcer now.
Oh, yeah.
TV, I'm not sure which, yeah.
Yeah, I think he does great. He does One Bills Live for the Bills, and he also worked the game yesterday on CBS.
Okay, great. Great guy, great character, great family. I think he had a son that played in the Canadian League, too.
He did, and he's the radio announcer there.
Oh, I see. All right. Everything I remind you of, you know way better than I do.
Well, I'm a few years younger than you, and I hope to make it anywhere close to your age. It would be an honor.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I just had number 99 earlier this month. Yep.
Well, we celebrated my son's 3rd birthday on the same day you celebrated your 99th.
Your son's 3rd, huh?
Yeah, yep.
That's great. That's great.
So,
that's wonderful.
I also know that you were hired midway through the season in 1986 after the Bills fired their head coach, but you kept most of the coaching staff there, and you were able to swoop up Tasker off of waivers after he got injured, and you guys shared your first game together, correct?
Yeah. Actually, what happened is Bill Polian had gotten hired by Ralph Wilson up in Buffalo. They let their coach go in mid-season, and Bill recommended me very strongly, and then they went ahead and did hire me. And one of the scouts came in just about 2 weeks or so afterwards, and he said, "Marv, I know you love the special teams." He said, "I used to scout for the Oilers, and they're bringing Steve Tasker off injured reserve. In those days, to bring a player off injured reserve, you had to put him on waivers. And if no one claimed him, you could." So we claimed him, and oh boy. And what a guy, what character, what a family guy, everything about him.
So that gentleman who gave you that recommendation, would that happen to be Joe Faragelli?
Yes. Oh, man, you got a better whatever you call it. Oh, yeah, memory than I do.
So you coached that 86 season, and you had to coach Jim Kelly, who had been especially outspoken about not really wanting to come to Buffalo because he was drafted in 83, and that, I believe, was his first season. What was it like coaching Jim Kelly, and what did he have to say?
Once I got there, he had been there for a short period of time, but he had no other choice but to come. The USFL was folding, and many years later, Jim Kelly said, "No one ever wants to come to Buffalo." He said, "Once they get here, no one ever wants to leave." He still lives there.
So does Tasker, right?
Yeah, so does Tasker. Well, no one wants to leave.
So now that we're talking about Jim Kelly, he has a lot of the franchise records still, but do you think that Josh Allen potentially will break all of those records?
Well, he might. Records finally get broken. Babe Ruth's record got broken. It happens. Somebody beat the first guy who ran the 4-minute mile. The likelihood is it can occur. But no one thinks any less of Babe Ruth today than they do.
He'd have to stay healthy.
Yeah, that's true.
That's true. And times change. Obviously, they're throwing the ball more now than ever. If you flexed out Josh Allen's average stats over his 94 games to 160, he would have a better record in numbers, but it wouldn't be by much. It would only be 7 wins more and then about 3,000 yards more. And that's over the course of a career. That's pretty impressive considering how many games Allen has actually been able to play with avoiding major injury.
That's certain.
Kelly he was my childhood, and so was your coaching. Here I am now talking about the Bills years later, and you've all left an impression on me and still talking about those days.
Well, I'm very complimented by your comments. Thank you.
So when you had gone to 4 straight Super Bowls, after that first one, which was a tough loss, you had a poem that your mother gave you that you later recited. Would you happen to remember that now?
Yeah. Fight my man Sir Andrew said, a little I'm hurt, but not yet slain. I'll just lie them bleed a while, then I'll rise and fight again. Yeah.
And we have...
Like from the 1200s, I think. Yeah. Yeah, he didn't say it to me directly, but he...
Ralph Waldo Emerson once said that failure is just an opportunity to start again more intelligently. And I think that is the truth.
So I hear you go on a lot of walks. I want to know, when you're doing those daily walks in Lincoln Park, do you happen to listen to music or audiobooks or recite poems?
No, I just look at the pretty girls that walk by. That's it.
So do you ever get recognized?
Every now and then, yeah, somebody, but maybe less and less now as, the days go by. Yeah, there's people recognize me, and I don't know how many times it's happened here in Chicago where somebody will come and say, I was originally from Buffalo, so, but I'm out for walks almost every day. I used to go out for a good half-hour run, not that anymore. About 5 years ago, I had a tumble coming home, and since then my balance has been absolutely, I have to use a walker full time, and my energy ain't what it used to be. I used to run those 26.2 marathons. Now, if I go 26.2 yards, I got to sit down.
Well, that's understandable. I mean, 99 is a huge accomplishment, and that's something that not too many people can say they've made it to. And I know you'll make it to 100, and you're going to have a big celebration because I hope the Bills can bring you a Super Bowl in your lifetime.
That would be wonderful. I sure hope so.
Happy birthday, dear Mom. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you all, and I want to invite you all to my 200th birthday.
I did have a funny one here.
Okay.
So I remember you chewing gum vigorously, and you would be shown on TV a lot. Now, my question to you is, who chewed gum more often or more aggressively, you or Pete Carroll?
Pete Carroll. Yeah, Pete. And I got to know Pete pretty darn well at league meetings and things like that. And one day I was walking in the park in Lincoln Park here in Chicago, and he came the other way. I don't know what he was doing here or anything, but we had a nice chat. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. So what was your favorite brand of gum, or maybe flavor, during your your time of chewing gum?
No, my favorite was a martini, to tell you the truth, not gum. No, I didn't really have one. I haven't chewed much lately either, for quite a few years.
Okay, I've got one last question here. Going into the first Super Bowl against the Giants, it was well documented that some media members noticed a team that was almost kind of too loose or too confident. Now, hindsight is always 20/20, but if you could go back in time and you could have managed that first one possibly differently, would you have been more strict on the team regarding like curfews or partying or anything like that?
No, I think that's sort of been overblown anyway. No, if I could do anything about that, I'd widen the goalpost by about 3 feet.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I do think the Bills can do it, and, those 4 Super Bowls you went to, it's never been done again as far as 4 in a row, and I think that accomplishment by a coach or player will never be done again.
Well, thank you for that comment, but it's a pleasure talking with you now, and I admire your insights and your history and your apparent love of the game.
Oh, I have it for sure. Thank you so much, and I appreciate your time very much. My father has since passed, but he would be very proud of the fact that I've been able to even talk to you, so it's been a true honor.
Thank you, Scott. Get back to work, and no curfew for you tonight. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all for enriching my life.
All right, so that was a true bucket list thing there, to be able to interview Marv Levy and then be told that we can do it again in the future. I think that is awesome. For 99 years old, that man has a sense of humor. I'm glad that he let me stay up past my curfew. What was your favorite part of that interview?
I love the fact that he did the surrender quote, but honestly, well, other than how well it was delivered by you and him, like you asked great questions, you conducted a great interview, you brought out some great questions from Marv. I think though, other than the fight on my men quote, my favorite part of the interview was when you asked him, is there anything you regretted how you handled the team going to that first Super Bowl against the Giants with kind of being a little too overconfident? And he said, no, the only thing I would have changed if I could have is moved the right goalpost 3 feet to the right or whatever. I thought that just was one of many examples that displays his sense of humor, which is amazing, and his wittiness, which I think he both developed for his love of literature and poetry, and his intellect is evident. So I love that part of it.
During my research, I watched his Hall of Fame speech. I've seen the Super Bowl commercial, the commercial that aired during the Super Bowl, where it's self-deprecating humor, talking about with the Snickers bar and stuff.
Yeah, we're gonna sit here all night until we figure out how to win a Super Bowl.
All the little tongue-in-cheek things. And then obviously when I asked him about like what does he do when he's in Lincoln Park, and he says, oh, I just check out the ladies. Like,
I just look at the pretty girls.
But it really was a true honor, and his wife is a gem. She was on the call for an hour with me beforehand. I had to do it over the phone, which was not the best audio, but that was so on Marv's end, the audio was enhanced so he could hear it, because his hearing isn't the greatest at 99. Hell, if anyone lives at 99 and has any hearing, good for you. So he's got this home landline that has enhanced audio that I had to call into, and then he answers that. So that's why you hear my audio kind of clip or get blown out. It's mostly because I needed to speak up so he could hear me.
No, you did a great job, man. It tickled me and my family. Like I said, like it really, like that day we listened to it in rapid together, put a smile on all our faces, and we got some good laughs. So well done on the interview.
Thank you. Yeah, during a dark time for you, losing your mother and all, it was one of those things that I hope uplifted you and now many Bills fans. Well, interviewing Marv Levy was obviously an honor. The guy has a great sense of humor, like I said, great insight. He's super sharp for 99. I would love to be able to pick his brain again and make him a regular guest. This is going to be the first of many interviews we do on this podcast and this channel. Wherever you're listening, you'll be able to get, hopefully in the future, we can move that to maybe Steve Tasker and Thurman Thomas and Jim Kelly and maybe even current players. Maybe we someday, the house that Allen built gets Josh Allen on the podcast.
Wouldn't that be something? Josh Allen.
I do have a quick shout out for Joe Lucas here in Portland, Oregon, who helped set this entire thing up. So I've been putting in some time for one of our mutual friend Nathan's sports card shop in Beaverton, Oregon, called The Sports Room. And in doing so, I came across a Marv Levy signed jersey, and it said Coach Levy on the back. I have a friend who said that he has an acquaintance who happened to be the son-in-law of Marv Levy. When he came in to visit me, I gave him that jersey as a gift because he was giving me a DeMar Hamlin jersey signed.
Nice.
So I'm going to have that framed and hung up. But he was elated and said, I owe you. And I said, oh, no, you don't. And then come to find out, he came through with it with his buddy Greg, who happens to be the son-in-law, who helped set this up. And then Fran took over as she manages a lot of what Marv does. And the rest is history. So it would have never happened without all those guys coming in the clutch. I am forever grateful and honored by that. It's something I will carry with me forever. You can never take this away. Even if for some reason it ends up disappearing from YouTube, I will always have it here, and I always have a copy on my hard drive. So I want to end this episode showing what we do every single season, every single episode when we remember, and that is showcase a sports card. This year is Marv Levy. It is 5 of 50, and it is Marv Levy's autograph on a card. And I actually showed this to him. I had his wife show him a picture of it, and he was honored and had a little chuckle out of it. This episode is for you, Marv Levy. This episode is for Deanna Vollmer. We dedicate this entire episode in your mother's honor. We all send our condolences, and she's here. She's here with us forever.
Love you, man. Thank you.
All right, guys, on behalf of Greg Vollmer, I am Scott Camartin, and you have watched the first episode of 2024 with season 3 of The House that Ellen Built. Thanks for watching. We'll see you soon.
You got me feeling like I'm Josh Allen, yeah. What? You got me feeling like I'm Josh. Okay. You got me feeling like I'm Josh Allen, yeah. Josh. Got me feeling like I'm who? Josh. Yeah. Josh Allen.